The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. My name is Mary Catherine Campbell. Welcome to the National Drive Electric Week webinar series, including this first one, Events, Resources, and Fundraising. I am joined by my colleague from Sierra Club, Gina Copeland-Newfield. I am the Plug-in America National Drive Electric Week Program Manager for National Drive Electric Week. Gina, I don't know if you are on the line yet, but if you are, please pipe up.
I am. Can you hear me, MK?
I can hear you.
Great. Hi, everybody. It's Gina Copeland-Newfield. I direct the Sierra Club's National Electric Vehicles Initiative. So glad to be on this webinar.
We are thrilled to have you, and we're thrilled to have all of you who are listening in. Hopefully, everybody who was going to join us is on the call already. And if not, or if you've missed it, any portion of this webinar, we will be recording it and posting it on the YouTube site and on a link from National Drive Electric Week resources page under webinars. So if you have questions, this is just a little housekeeping stuff before we kick off. You're all on mute right now, and that's nothing personal. It's just because we have a couple hundred people on the call. Excuse me, more than 100 people on the call. If you have questions, feel free to jot them down. At the end, Gina and I will be available to answer those questions. There's a little question mark icon on your right on the control panel, and we will reserve the last 15 minutes or so of this call to answer those questions. And again, if you miss any portion of this or questions crop up afterwards, you can always contact us via the website, and our contact information will be provided there as well. So many of you have been involved in previous years, and we can't thank you enough for your continued interest in National Drive Electric Week. Some of you I know are new to this fun, so I wanted to call your attention to how the event has evolved over time, and we're so grateful to so many of you for being involved. This is a national event that started in 2011. We had about 30 events then, and last year in 2015 we had nearly 200 events with more than 130,000 people, and many, many more who have read about it or watched local news coverage of the event. So the purpose and the drive here is to really get as many people as possible converted into loving electric vehicles like we do, and none of this would be possible without your hard work. So we're so pleased and grateful that you're able to be involved with city captains and as local volunteers. National Drive Electric Week is made possible through a national partnership with Plug-in America, the Electric Auto Association, and Sierra Club. And Gina's on the call right now with us representing the Sierra Club. The events run large and small. We have many different events of many different types and sizes. There are a few examples here in this photo that I'm showing you right now. Among them have been electric vehicle parades with a few hundred vehicles breaking world records, maybe one in Cupertino, California comes to mind in 2014. And even more importantly than the number of vehicles are the number of people that have visited or attended or gotten to ride or drive in one of these vehicles. And we've shown a significant uptick in the number of electric vehicles sold or leased after these National Drive Electric Week events. So your hard work is building the market for electric vehicles and making this conversion to clean vehicles happen even faster. So again, thank you. I'll be thanking you throughout this call, by the way. The purpose of this call is to give you some sage wisdom on lessons learned, and the number one thing that we can help with is helping you select a site for your event. And our number one advice is to go where the people are. Come to the people and try to reach as many people who are not familiar with electric vehicles as possible. And there's some ideas on that that I don't necessarily need to read through for you. You can read for yourself, but I have a couple fun anecdotes that I'd like to share with you. A couple years ago, one city captain held a great ride and drive event at a local sports arena. Unfortunately, there was no sporting event or any other kind of concert or anything else happening, so he had maybe 30 cars and 30 drivers, but no audience to enjoy the fruits of his labor. So our first and foremost recommendation is to find where the people are and to go where there will be lots of foot traffic. Good examples of this would be the local mall. A really highly popular event that got thousands of people last year was at the Mall of America, right outside of one of the dozens of food courts. So when you have food, another successful event was a test drives for tacos event where the city captain got a local taco truck to donate tacos. He would hand out tickets for all the people who were involved in the ride and drive, and they got free tacos. So if you have food, there will be people who show up. We of course recommend that this event is free and that you do not charge folks to attend, and that it's more like a fun festival atmosphere. Any kind of protection from the weather that you can do would be greatly appreciated. I'm sure for some of the regions that are hotter or in this National Drive Electric Week, September 10th to the 18th. So we want to give a little support and a little shout out to the website. It's a tremendous resource, and if you haven't had time to kind of comb through it, I know it's a little bit dense, but it has pretty much every question answered. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you get your pin in the map so that other local city captains can either volunteer to help you or will not hold a conflicting event. We want to have as many people show up as possible, but in some of the larger cities that might be possible to have, like for example in Los Angeles, multiple events over multiple days that would not deplete crowds from one key event. In other smaller regions, it might be beneficial for people to join forces and to hold one event on one day at one location. So the sooner you get your pin in the map, the better. And then we recommend you reach out to your local resources, including your Sierra Club chapter. The Electric Auto Association has chapters all over the country. We're highly involved this year, and even more so than in years past, with the local Clean Cities coordinators. Clean Cities is a Department of Energy subset of local nonprofits that help spread the word about clean technologies, and they're really educated on this, and some of them will be city captains, and some of them will happily provide resources and help to your local region. So to find a Clean Cities coordinator near you, you can visit the Department of Energy's website and look it up. The American Lung Association is also another great group. Utilities that are involved in electric charging would be also helpful, and they provide outreach and other support as needed, in some cases sponsorship, not in all cases, but in some. And then there are other social media groups on Twitter and on Facebook that will also provide the kind of amplification of your message and the conduit to some of your local folks who might be interested in attending. As always, and I say this a lot, the more the merrier. The more people you get involved, the more volunteers you get to help, the better off we're going to be, and they'll help with the work. So the website has a volunteer tracker all set up for you, so we highly recommend that you respond promptly to volunteer requests and questions so that you can start building up your cachet of helpful folks, and in some cases maybe even co-city captains. One primary thing that has to happen with public events like this, and this is true pretty much anywhere in the U.S., Big events and parades may require you to have permits from your local government agencies, so we recommend that you start early and contact them soon to make sure that all of your permits are in order for any size gathering. It depends really upon where you are, but it's always smart to ask that question as early as possible to find that out, so that you're not 3/4 done with your planning before you realize that permits are required. Some site hosts also may require insurance. We can help with that. There's a section on the website called insurance coverage, and I will go over that a little bit with you when we review the website materials later on in this conversation. There are some instances where Sierra Club, and maybe this might be a good point, Gina, for you to mention how Sierra Club chapters handle insurance requests.
Sure. So we certainly encourage all the organizers, as MK said, to look into, whether you need insurance for your event. I would say for those of you who are affiliated with the Sierra Club chapter and are organizing this event on behalf of your chapter, we do have certain guidelines for Sierra Club chapters around these issues. So for example, and this is, I think, because we are such a large organization, with some liability concerns, that unfortunately Sierra Club chapters are not able to organize the ride and drive events themselves because we don't have the insurance coverage for that type of thing. However, we've figured out some ways around that. So for example, if you are a Sierra Club chapter leader organizing an event, we definitely still encourage you to organize a ride and drive as part of your event, but that part of it would need to be sponsored or organized by other entities. So for example, maybe an Electric Auto Association group or a Clean Cities group, or even local auto dealers. And in some ways that might be easiest to work with the local auto dealers because they are very well equipped to deal with the insurance issues because they take on test drives all the time. So again, as MK said, we'll send around some more information and guidelines around that, but just wanted to give a quick heads up to Sierra Club chapter leaders around that specific issue.
Thanks, Gina. So the leveraging local auto dealers is a key element of this. When city captains organize ride and drives for people, the auto dealers will often show up with the vehicles, obviously, to test drive, and they send knowledgeable salespeople who know the ins and outs of the vehicles. So they're there to answer questions, and they love nothing more, obviously, than to try to talk about their vehicles and get people to drive them. So do take advantage of that, and there's nothing more effective, we've found, than actually letting people take these cars out for a spin because they're a superior ride. So do use your relationships with local auto dealers to your best advantage. Another thing we recommend you start doing now, and I can't believe it's already almost July, which is crazy, but you start your event publicity early. It can help you get the word out and solicit volunteers who will then in turn help you with the work that you have lying ahead over the next couple months. We will provide in a later webinar specific tips about how to get media coverage. That webinar is scheduled for July 8th, and the time is to be determined, but I will definitely be in touch with a specific time on that as soon as possible. And there are a number of resources also on the website, including press release templates. And as we get closer to the event, Sierra Club and others have assisted with some outreach advice and even sometimes assistance with reaching and pitching to local reporters. But that's for when you're closer to the actual National Drive Electric Week. We're recommending that you get started with a save the date. Once you've got a date scheduled, go ahead and start letting local reporters know, because these are really camera-friendly events, and they like to show up and watch cars moving people plugging them in and kids enjoying the fast pickup of an electric vehicle. So do consider your publicity early this year. And to that, also I recommend using social media to try to drum up interest. Once you've set the date and location, make sure that's covered on the website. Make sure that you update the website as you go. And then use social media to amplify your message and to thank your sponsors and to encourage more volunteers, put calls out for volunteers, that kind of thing. Speaking of sponsors, so the first step is to make sure you get your event listed on the NDEW website so that people, National Drive Electric Week website, so that people know, that your local businesses know that you're working on this and that you're starting to get publicity in advance for the event. The resources page, again, is a great resource for specific guidelines on how to obtain sponsorships. There you can contact your local auto dealers. There is an exception that I will hand over to Gina momentarily to discuss related to Sierra Club chapters. But as I mentioned earlier, Plug in America has found that these ride and drive events suggest a bump of up to 12% in purchase rates. So the more ride and drives we get this year, the more electric vehicles will be sold, and the faster this absolutely necessary transition will happen. I also wanted to note that the national Nissan sponsorship does not preclude dealer participation with your local events. And again, Sierra Club has some of its own expectations there, but for non-Sierra Club city captains, Nissan can do two things. First of all, you can seek sponsorships from your local automakers and ride and drive vehicles and expertise, and Nissan will also help put you in touch with the local leaf dealers. So there's a good possibility we might be having a webinar later in the summer, probably mid-July, with Nissan about how to conduct outreach and deal with Nissan dealerships, and they also have some really good advice on conducting best practices for ride and drives. Other businesses that you could and probably should target include your local utilities, charging companies, lifestyle companies such as Whole Foods and other chains who have an interest in electric vehicles. Many of them have been deploying charging stations at their businesses. So they also have an interest in the same demographic. The types of people that will be attending your event are of great interest to many of these lifestyle companies as well. So think outside the box and see if there are some local businesses that might be interested. Your local coffee shops, for example, food truck companies, others. So I'd like to briefly hand it back over to Gina just so that she can elaborate slightly, and then maybe she will send a follow-up email about Sierra Club sponsor expectations for chapters.
Great, thanks. So as those of you who are Sierra Club chapter leaders probably already know, because Sierra Club works to maintain its independence, especially when we're, lobbying or advocating for the government to enforce or create regulations on the auto industry or the utility industry. So because of that, we don't actually accept money from the auto industry or the utility industry. But with that said, our local chapters are certainly able to accept sponsorship dollars or in-kind donations from a wide range of other companies. So I would just say, if you are a Sierra Club chapter or leader organizing a National Drive Electric Week event on behalf of your chapter, which is fantastic, you know, it's good to just keep in mind those corporate sponsorship guidelines that Sierra Club has, and we will send around a note with a reminder of what those are, and you can certainly let us know if you have questions. Perfect.
Thanks, Gina.
Sure.
And I just wanted to delve a little bit deeper on the Nissan relationship. The LEAF is the exclusive automotive sponsor, but that's for the national level only. And again, I encourage you guys, with the exception of some of the Sierra Club expectations, to deal with your local dealers, vehicle dealers. You might have noticed in the photos at the front there were BMWs, and I think I saw a snippet of a Fiat 500e. So for your local events, you can have a wide and broad range of vehicles on hand for people to see kind of the breadth of all the vehicles that are available that were not available even 5 years ago. But that said, Nissan is a really valuable partner here. They support the website development and maintenance. They also help support national press work. They help with the webinar sponsorship and provide other support. In some instances, booth fees for Nissan dealerships will be covered by Nissan. So if your local Nissan dealer sends a representative, their costs will be covered so that you guys don't have to worry about dealing with that. And then we are exploring again this year materials for local events, and we're working on actually a menu of options for city captains to select. Some of you may have banners and directional signs from previous years, and maybe you're not interested in obtaining duplicates of those. That would be great if you didn't have to duplicate those, which is why they're not dated. But you might also have an interest in some of the new materials for the kits that Nissan will be providing. And as soon as we solidify those, we'll make that information available on the website. We'll send a blast out and tell you how to order them. The city captain resources are also on the website. Include these free items from Nissan as well as T-shirts. And we encourage you, now that you've signed up on the website, to put in your T-shirt sizes so that we can start collecting those. And you can also offer T-shirts to your volunteers or others, and there's a spot on the website for you to put in the sizes there too. The other resources on the website that I will be reviewing quickly with you after this slide include past webinar recordings, which probably are equally helpful, if not more helpful than the one I'm doing right now. Sponsorship letter templates so that you guys don't have to figure out a way to broach these conversations about fundraising with sponsors. You can download a kind of easy to use template where you can plug in your own information to it. There are also press alert templates, media advisory, which is something that you would send a couple days before the event. You can also send out, like I said earlier, we encourage you to do this sooner than later, as soon as you have your event location and date and time set up, to start banging the drum with media and on social media early. And there are press alert templates there. Also on the website you'll see logo graphics files and some day of materials that you'll be able to use as resources for handouts for folks on the ground. Sometimes you want to give away something that will last with folks so that they can use as research materials for the newly initiated. They might want to take a ride and drive and then read up on some of their options for electric vehicles and charging equipment. So I'd like to do a quick tour of the website. And many of you I know will be intimately familiar with this, and some of you maybe not. So it doesn't hurt. I've read many times that you need to repeat something 6 times before people actually absorb it. So hopefully this will be like the 7th or 8th time that you've heard this. But we'll go over your event info page, the event page guide, which helps kind of walk you through the process of setting up the website, ride and drive t-shirt and mailing list questions, which are also entered on the website, how to contact your attendees and collect their contact information. This is pretty important because we have some very significant privacy guidelines that we want to follow and that are important. And there's a way to collect attendee information and get in touch with attendees after the fact, but you have to kind of follow these guidelines in order to be able to do that. And then there's an opportunity to download attendee info, post press links for the event, and then we encourage you to fully engage in the after-event report and photo portion so that we can spread the word on a national level with national media and funding agencies and others to show the growth and breadth and depth of National Drive Electric Week events. Okay, so the National Drive Electric Week resource page is, again, a huge resource for everyone. First, I wanted to go to the events page and show you an example of the events webinar or web page that you will be able to maintain. Some of you have done this already. We see a number of green pins on the map and 70 more that are gray. They're gray because they have not selected a time or date, location for the event. So as soon as you select a location and that is approved, the event will turn from gray to green. And we'll look at all these folks up in Canada working hard on National Drive Electric Week events. The East Coast is also looking pretty saturated. That's great. Okay, so let's go look at the events page. We'll just pick an example. Why don't we do Huntsville, Alabama? Because you're first in line, Huntsville. So this event has yet to be, their event location and date has yet to be determined. There's a city captain who's already assigned. The event administration page is visible only to the city captains for these specific events. And then the actual meat of the event that will be published once it's solidified is here under Update Events. The event will be on a single day. In this case, the event date has yet to be determined, but when you select that drop-down menu, you get the option to select your date, and then you want to make sure that you put in the hours that the event will happen, and that will turn the pin from gray to green. Once you solidify the specifics about the location, you can put those specifics in here. The map pin position will automatically generate from the information that you provide with the street address and the zip code. This is where I was talking about the event organizer t-shirts. You can provide t-shirt sizes for your helpers, your volunteers, and co-captains. And if you click that button, you'll be able to provide the sizes, and then they will be sent to you. You want to, if you are going to conduct a ride and drive, to make sure that you check this box, and then that will automatically generate requests to attendees who are bringing their cars, and then they will be able to, you will be able to track the types of cars that will be available at your ride and drive. Again, and can't stress this enough, our privacy regarding our privacy policy is really strict. There's an opportunity for about a week after the event is over to contact the attendees and volunteers, but after that the information goes on lockdown unless you use this form right here to develop your own attendee list and group. You could do that using Facebook or a Google group or something else, some other kind of social media or other kind of mailing list format, so that you can capture that information for after the event, and you can invite the same attendees next year. Otherwise, only volunteers and city captains can be contacted through the website. So make sure, if you'd like to capture that information for follow-up groups, to use this function. This is the section below it where you would describe your event description. This is fully HTML capable, and there are many of you who have beautifully designed flyers and other information upload here. And this is the link that you use to promote the event in social media. Your specific event will go directly to this section, which will generate an HTML page for you with all of the details about your local event. This section here where I have my cursor is the press link section. So if you do manage to generate pre-event press coverage, feel free to start uploading that information here. You simply type in the headline or cut and paste it along with the link, and it'll give you the option to tag it with a drop-down menu here. And then after the event, we highly recommend, and this is really important for purposes of the national event, but also for local events, to prove to sponsors and others that it was worthwhile, is to fill in the blanks on these event reports so that we get a picture of how broad and deep we're going. This year, as I mentioned, in the first year there were about 30 events and a couple thousand people. Last year we had more than 100, I think we had 196 total events, almost 200 events, and more than 130,000 people. And we were able to track that using the event reports section. So I know you'll be exhausted after your event, so the sooner after your successful event is complete, the better you can get this report information into us, including at least one great photo that kind of captures the flavor for your event. Crowd shots of people milling around cars, or a super thrilled person driving a car would be wonderful. There are some people who have managed even to climb up to the top rooftops of buildings and get beautiful photos of kind of a ride and drive course or others. So we're also looking at potentially providing or figuring out how to get some GoPro cameras out to some local events. And one guy even suggested maybe he would use his drone to get a flyover. We would recommend, obviously, if you decide to do that, to be careful with a drone, but if you're knowledgeable about how to do that and you have insurance, to go for it, because it's really neat to get aerial shots. And then be sure to click this photo release so that we're able to use it in media outreach for future events. If you can, and you know who's in the shot, make sure to, and the vehicles that are in the shot, to make sure to identify those. And if you have someone who is not you, who has taken the photo or given the photo, please also make sure to credit them so that we can make sure that they're credited. There are some media coverage that has happened well after the fact, and the photographers have been credited in really nice magazines and on television. So we want to make sure that everybody gets the credit that they are due. So next, I wanted to quickly just review with you the resource page. It's super helpful, and I know that there are it can get a little bit dense in terms of words, but it's all there because people have been asking these questions for quite some time, and we've been able to answer hopefully all of the questions on the website. And if we can't, again, I encourage you to give us shoot us a note after this is over, and we'd be happy to elaborate on them. But the first thing I wanted to talk about under this was the publicity section, getting the word out. There are all kinds of events that happen throughout the summer, and everybody's aware of that. But if you could start talking about your National Drive Electric Week event ahead of time, that will help generate buzz and interest, especially among people who care about this stuff, so that they know that this is coming up in September, and it will also help generate volunteers and possible city captains in your region so that there's more than one event in your location. We also wanted to briefly touch on the insurance coverage issue. This looks a little dense too, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. But again, we mentioned here that Sierra Club has specific guidelines on this, and they will be following up with a note to city captains so that the Sierra Club leaders and chapter organizers know what they're required and able to do with insurance. But we do suggest that you take care of the permits and once you've had your location nailed down, any kind of local city permits that are required, and to approach a local agent and sponsorship to cover the costs of the event. In some cases, maybe even the insurance company might offer sponsorship of your event. Excuse me while I scroll up back to the top. I told you it was long and wordy. There are other resources here that I mentioned during the webinar earlier, including artwork, which includes these logos here that you see, the National Drive Electric Week vehicle, the Plug-in America and Sierra Club and Electric Auto Association logos. Sierra Club logo is going to be changing over the next couple days. So if you want to revisit the website, say on Wednesday, you'll be able to get the latest Sierra Club logo. The others are available in vector format and JPEG, PNG, as well as PDF. All of the city captains will be provided if they have not already. And again, I would encourage you to use materials. If you had from last year, the banners and the directional signs are not dated. So if you could use those, that would be great. I don't know if you've noticed this, but the Nissan Leaf logo has also changed. This is a slightly new font for those of you with an eagle eye and a fan of font colors and sizes. The Nissan Leaf font changed slightly, so this is posted and can be used with your materials along with your other sponsor materials. I think I've covered almost all of it. I think I would like to just quickly mention that there are opportunities for you to download your event information after the fact, but as I mentioned, it is going to be restricted. You want to think about your follow-up plan before you even have the event so that you can kind of keep in touch with folks afterwards, keep them energized throughout the year. We're going to be looking for ways to engage with people over the year as after the events unfold so that we can generate interest and get people started even sooner next year. So just keep in mind that we're not going to, you don't close up shop and not think about it again until July 2017. This is a great opportunity for you to kind of become a leader in your area and develop relationships with local businesses and attendees and others so that you're banging the drum all year long. So we will be having another webinar on July 8th, as I mentioned, and as soon as I have the timing on that set up, I will be sending out an invitation to all of you. That webinar will focus on public relations and on developing relationships with your local political leaders. Some of the most popular events and most well-attended events, especially well-attended by media that end up getting the most, as we indelicately call it, eyeballs on the events, include local elected leaders who like to come and speak and be photographed with the electric vehicles, and in many cases, some of them are responsible for legislation that has an impact on the incentives and other charging infrastructure and other related legislation in your area. So it's a good opportunity for you to both acknowledge and engage with your local elected leaders, and then therefore provide more bait for local media to show up. So that event hopefully will be super helpful for you, and Gina will be helping lead that. Thank you, Gina, as always, for helping with that topic. So I do have a few questions, and hopefully, Gina, you can help me answer them. So I'm running this on my own, so bear with me while I read them. But Gina, do you have anything to add before I start asking questions?
The only thing I would add, because I'm not sure if we mentioned it, but even if we did, it's worth repeating, is for those of you who have not yet registered your event, even if you don't know the exact date or location yet, as MK said, we definitely encourage you to just go ahead and register it, get that pin in the map, and the web address is driveelectricweek.org. So even if you just take 5 minutes today, we definitely encourage everyone to go ahead and get events registered, which is a great way to get the process started.
Yes, please. And for those of you who are not already listed as volunteers, the first step is to click on the volunteer sign-up page, which is available from the homepage and the events page, and you select what role you'd like to play. Here, I would like to develop a new event, or I would like to help with an existing event. Okay, so let's see your questions. I'm going to briefly stop showing my screen to protect the identities of the questioners, but you will still be hearing me speak. Okay, so I did see one question. One person was saying to avoid paperwork, they were thinking about holding a driveway party, and we appreciate that. I think that's a great idea. You don't want to avoid paperwork and then have no one show up. So if your interest is in using the website to kind of amplify your message, I would definitely recommend taking a risk, going out on a limb a little bit and seeing if you can get any kind of local support for your event. Otherwise, it'll kind of be happening in a vacuum, and we won't be able to track how effective your efforts are or spread the word about the event. I did see another question from someone who was asking about holding an event not in September or not within the week of September 10th to the 18th. You are always welcome to do that, and actually Plug-in America has a driveway party kit available on the website. But again, we're not going to necessarily use the website or develop resources for events that don't happen within the September 10th to the 18th time frame. And while that may not be ideal for some people in terms of other conflicts or even regional weather patterns, it definitely is the least bad timing for the most number of people. I can tell you in Los Angeles, September is invariably unbearably hot, and in other regions it might be rainy. So anything you can do to mitigate those issues ahead of time would be great. Think about locating where you can have maybe a static display inside a mall. Or in the case of California, maybe seeing if you can obtain some nice shade doing the event in a shady parking lot or under the shade of some tents. That would be really helpful to try to make it as comfortable as possible for people. But unfortunately, we cannot change the week, and the reason for that is really simple. It's to get as many folks involved in that short time frame as possible and get the national media and lawmaker attention, frankly, for the momentum for electric vehicles.
Yeah, and MK, I'll just quickly add to that, that in past years we've definitely found that to be the case. I mean, we know that that week is not ideal for every single community, and we recognize that. And so if you have to organize your events during other times, you know, we totally appreciate that. But we have definitely found that we're much more successful, all of us at the local and national level, at getting press, at getting governors and mayors and congresspeople involved in these events, getting the public to come when there's buzz around the fact that this is part of a much larger effort. And so yes, you know, you might be having this event in Huntsville, Alabama, but it's part of this larger national and even international effort, and it definitely helps draw much more attention. So yeah, that's why we do it as a week, but again, appreciate that it doesn't work for 100% of the people.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Gina. So one person asked, how does one become a city leader in a city that does not have a leader already? And that's a great question. You volunteer using that volunteer link to become a city captain, and you're not on your own there. When you click on the link and you develop your website, you start from there to solicit help and volunteers. And again, I encourage you not to be frightened by the prospect of taking a leadership role, but rather to take advantage of the fact that there are Electric Auto Association chapters, Sierra Club chapters, Plug in America can help. There are Clean Cities coordinators from the Department of Energy and others who are more than willing to step up and either, if not lead themselves, then lend support and advice and outreach assistance, which will help garner more volunteers. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling step that you have to go through. The first step, though, to become a city captain is to go to that event volunteer page and click on the job event request and select, I would like to lead an event. That was from Julie. Thanks, Julie. Elaine suggests who has...
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Just maybe we should clarify for Julie or anybody else. So the literal page is the one that's on the screen right now. It's https://driveelectricweek.org/volunteer.php. And that's the literal page where you would go and then you would select, you know, whether you want to help with an existing event or organize your own. And I would say if you're not sure that any have questions about what it entails, MK, is it safe to say they can email either you or Mary Lunetta?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
And do we have email addresses on the website?
We do not. There's a way to contact us through the website, but I will happily share it now verbally. And then I will also, why don't I put, do you think Mary would mind? She's not here to defend herself.
No, it's fine.
Do you think you would mind if we, okay. Yeah. Okay, let me share this slide with you then. Everyone, you could see this. And Gina, actually this URL, this email domain, I believe goes to all of us. And it's events-2016@driveelectricweek.org. And if you'd like to reach me directly, I'm at mkcampbell@plugin, if I could type, america.org. And if you have any questions, you can also click on the website. There's a contact us button. There are multitudes of ways of getting in touch, and we're always happy to be responsive and share whatever wisdom we might have. I'm pausing my share screen again so I could read these questions. So bear with me, folks, as I open this back up. Normally we have someone on hand who helps support the question part, but it's me. I'm flying solo today. Gina and I are flying solo. So there was a question about, there was actually a suggestion from someone who said when people signed in to their event, when attendees signed in, they were given 2 free food tickets. And I can't emphasize this enough. You would never throw a party without having refreshments, would you? So definitely, if you're going to be holding a celebration, whatever you can do to either solicit local sponsors who can provide food. There are tons of people at farmers markets and other places who would love nothing more than to expose their products to your folks. So do what you can to make sure that food is provided. In some instances, food permits are required. So again, when you are developing your plan, and as I mentioned 3 or 4 times already, so the 5th or 6th time should sink in. When you're developing your plan and you're looking at whatever permits are required for your location, make sure that you're thinking about any required food permits, and your local government will be more than happy, I'm sure, to tell you what's needed in order to plan a successful event. There was one group last year who told us that they had neglected to obtain food permits and then were cited after the fact for even handing out bottled water. So some cities are more lax than others, and some are incredibly officious. So I caution you to make sure that you're aware of that, you know, well in advance, so that you have it all handled, so that you don't have to worry about it in the days, or heaven forbid, the day of your event. A couple other questions have popped up here. One person says you don't need a permit on private property. That may be true. I'm not, I assume that's true, but if you're going to have public event access, I would caution event against not researching that ahead of time. If you have a giant estate, if, say for example, you're Oprah Winfrey, and you want to hold your ride and drive on your one of your many estates, I am sure that she has liability. She has people who look into her liability for when she opens up her private property for public events, and I am also sure that that might include some permitting. So I would not recommend trying to hold an event on private property and then not considering all of the machinations or requirements of your local city government as a solution. There will be a number of events that will be held this year on college campuses, and universities have their own methods for event planning and their own requirements too. So you will, if you happen to be a city captain working with your local university event planner, make sure that they are covering those bases as well. Oh, this is a good segue into the next question. Does anybody have any tips on having an ambassador school attend? What about you, Gina? Do you have any tips on that and how to like engage with local STEMs, science magnet schools?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it was either last year or the year before that this idea first came up of encouraging local city captains to collaborate with local universities or colleges or even high schools as a way to both, you know, boost the popularity of your event, but also to, you know, bring the next generation in. So I guess the recommendations I'd give on that would be to start with some of the departments or clubs at area schools that you think might have an interest. So if there's an environmental club, or sometimes there might even be some sort of engineering or car club, you know, especially if you're in a state like Michigan, there might be some sort of auto engineering club or department, and reaching out to students or professors who are leaders with those clubs or departments, I think would be a great place to start. And if the person you speak to doesn't know or isn't the right person, you can certainly ask them who else they would recommend within that school. So yeah, I think that's a terrific idea.
Yeah, it really is. And they're actually, even beyond the engineering and automotive clubs, we've had some questions from marketing majors and social media and communications folks who are interested in finding out how giant coordinated events like this come together. So there are a number of sustainability and other areas of interest at universities and even at local high schools that might be piqued and would not only generate support and volunteers, but also possibly have many of their families and kids show up to attend as well. So great question, Elaine. Elaine with another great question. There are 2 more questions, and then I think if anyone doesn't have any more questions, we can wrap up maybe a couple minutes early. One of them is, how do we get a copy of today's slide presentation? So the presentation will be recorded. I'm recording it right now, and it will be available on the website, I think either tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest. So you'll be able to watch this and listen to it and share it with your volunteers if for some reason they were not on the call and they had questions. And again, I encourage you to contact us if you have questions afterwards. One question from Josh is, could you please send out the emails of the EV folks who attended last year's events? No, we cannot, Josh. Unfortunately, we cannot do that. The privacy policy precludes us from being able to do that. There is a way for us as administrators to blast previous volunteers who were officially signed up, as well as previous years' city captains, and we do that and have done that a number of times. And city captains are also encouraged to be part of the Google group. It's a National Drive Electric Week Google group, private group, and if you're not a member of that and would like to be, please shoot me a note and I will add you to that group. And we encourage you guys to talk amongst yourselves, give each other tips, like the tip that someone shared earlier about handing out tickets for food. Any kind of good ideas or even bad ideas that didn't work out in previous years that you want to help people avoid pitfalls or mistakes made, lessons learned. We really encourage everybody to serve as resources for each other. But to circle back to the question from Josh, because of our privacy policy, there is not a way to contact event attendees from previous years up to a week after the event occurs. So I'm going to just show my screen again. I'm going to go back to the section of the website where you can solicit contact information from the people who are involved in the attending, the attendees. Bear with me here while I just do this quickly. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Gina, can you see my screen? Okay, I'm under Update Events. And I'm scrolling down to this section which says, I'm going to read it to you because, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's really important that if you want to be able to stay in touch with these people after a week out from the 18th, I guess the 25th of September, you're going to not be able to do that unless you develop your own separate list. So,
and actually, MK, the only screen I'm seeing right now is actually a screen that says it's blank with the title of this webinar, so I think we actually cannot see what you're hoping we can see, so you might need to describe it.
Oh,
yes,
goodness, okay.
All of a sudden, oh, wait, it was there, and then it disappeared.
I'm sorry about that. It's okay, you got it. Okay.
Yep,
so,
got it. Now
I could have read this to you, and you would have thought I was just speaking extemporaneously. So our privacy policy for people who register to attend events prevents us from sharing their email with the event organizers. You can send them email through the NDEW site until about a week after the event is over. If you'd like to give attendees a choice to share their email addresses so that you can add them to your local group, your local EV group, your Facebook group, etc., you can make that also now by giving them the name of the list or group you can offer to let them join. So once this option is set and anyone has accepted it, it cannot be changed. So this is for 2016's National Drive Electric Week. This page is an example of the Bridgewater, I think it's in New Jersey, event. So it's the Bridgewater, New Jersey contingent for National Drive Electric Week has a Facebook page or a Google group or other email list. You can type that in here, and then you can capture the names of the attendees at the event, and then next year or as the year goes on, you can maintain contact with them over time. Of course, we recommend never spamming people or trying to market to people. Don't sell or share your list with outside agencies. That's just the best practice. No one likes it when that happens to them, so we encourage you to keep kind of that kindness in mind when you are collecting your own list. But I'm sorry to say, Josh, that we cannot, due to our privacy policy, share the names of attendees, even amongst ourselves. So it's not like we have them and you can't. It's that